In 2017, the United Nations declared 16th May the International Day of Living Together in Peace, with the aim to promote peace, tolerance, inclusion, understanding, and solidarity across the world. Each year, this day is celebrated to reaffirm the commitments of international cooperation to solve challenges of an economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian character, and in promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and fundamental freedom for all. In this challenging crisis of COVID-19, let's spread compassion, kindness, hope, and establish a peaceful world. Lost Barbara Friedman. She is a founder and director of Birthlight. She is PhD from Cambridge and she is still active in medical anthropologist at the University of Cambridge, where she holds an affiliated lectureship. While working as a senior yoga teacher and yoga therapist specialized in the area of reproductive health for women and their families, she initiated a prenatal yoga module for yoga therapy diploma course created by Dr. Robin Monroe at the Yoga Biomedical Trust, London in 1995, followed by postnatal yoga and well-woman yoga. She has pioneered a style of yoga accessible to all women, irrespective of their level of fitness and background, with a focus on prevention and integrated maternity care. Birthlight, a UK-registered charity, originated in experimental Cambridge-based classes with the aim to enhance well-being during the prenatal continuum from conception to year 3. For this purpose, she pioneered equinatal yoga, baby yoga, and a yoga-based approach to water parenting. Birthlight is an acclaimed international training provider with an extensive network of trainers, teachers, and members, including health professionals as well as yoga teachers and therapists. She has authored 10 books on yoga and contributes to Yoga General. She is a long-standing member of International MERS Society of Prenatal Mental Health and the Society of Psychomatic Obstetrics, Gynecology and Andrology, the Journal of the Pre- and Postnatal Psychology and Health Association, among others. Besides speaking at international conferences, she convened Birthlight conferences at Cambridge, London.
Dr. Leon Moss, who is an ex-serviceman of United States Navy. He worked with the Winslow Township Public Works Department. Thereafter, a successful run for Vice President of the local union from 1989 to 1992. He served as volunteer firefighter as well as a Little League football coach. He also served as Vice President of Winslow Action Committee in 1993. Dr. Leon Moss moved to Georgia to participate in a larger movement for justice, peace and equality. This is where he received credentials of ordination as Doctor of Divinity in the field of theology, history and comparative religious studies and Semitic languages. He also studied and mastered metaphysics as well as transcendent and mindfulness meditation. In year 2014, he has done diploma in early childhood care and education. Presently, he is co-founder of Global Liberation of Love and Universal Devotion, which is a subsidiary of GLOD Family Circle, always serving Kedjeron communities. He is also the author of Discovering the Power Within You and Omni You.
In the panel discussion, we also have with us Acharya Dr. Lokesh Muniji. He is the founder-president of Ahimsa Vishwa Bharati. He renounced his worldly life at the age of 22 and studied Jain, Buddhist and Vedic philosophy. He is a versatile thinker, creative writer, poet, social reformer and an excellent orator. He has traveled in India and abroad to promote peace, harmony and non-violence. He is an author of more than dozens of books, both in prose and poetry. He is a master in the field of meditation, yoga and peace education. His contribution towards peace education is an integration of age-old meditation and yoga with current scientific research. He was honored with Ambassador of Peace by Universal Peace Federation in Interfaith Conference in 2014 organized at United Nations. In the year 2010, he was also awarded National Communal Harmony Award by Government of India. Honorable Vice President of India Muhammad Hamid Ansari and former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh honored Acharya ji with the award. In 2006, Honorable Shrimati Pratibha Patil conferred the famous ethical honor of Gulzarilal Nanda Foundation to Acharya Lokesh ji. He has made endless efforts to establish Bhagwan Mahavir values of non-violence, unity in diversity, and harmony in the society. We are blessed with the loving presence of Swami Suryananda Saraswati ji, founder and president of European Yoga Federation, and Yogi Andre Riel, founder of Nidra Consciousness Foundation, France. Today's panel discussion will be moderated by Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar, convener United Consciousness. Dr. Tomar is an acknowledged trainer, academician, scholar, writer, and a management consultant. He is a freelance trainer and served the cabinet ministers of state, MLAs, police officers, and tycoons of business world. He has his deep inclination towards Vedantic wisdom, and his aim and objective is universal brotherhood and happiness through harmonizing the knowledge from ancient scriptures into our lives. So I will welcome all our guests for the panel discussion.
Namaste, all the viewers from different parts of the world. Namaste, and we acknowledge presence of Acharya Lokesh Muniji. We acknowledge presence of Dr. Leon Moss. We acknowledge presence of Andre Relji, and we acknowledge presence of Swami Suryananda ji. Thank you very much for being here with us. Dear friends, for everybody's information, United Consciousness is a global initiative of Project Self Incorporation, USA and Bharat. United Consciousness is working for creation of world's first integrated manual of humanity, wherein we are identifying basic human values, which are must to create a vision to look divine beyond divides. See yourself beyond limited identities of caste, creed, race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, seeing beyond these limitations. In this journey, this is the third panel discussion, wherein we invite experts from different parts of the world to discuss about important aspects of human values and what their principal religions, their traditions speak about it, so that everybody can be enlightened by the wisdom coming from those traditions and scriptures. So today's topic of panel discussion is oneness, compassion, and eco-friendliness. So I'll begin with respected Acharya Lokesh Muniji with my first question. Acharya ji, when we talk about oneness, Upanishad says, Aham Brahmasmi, Tat Tvam Asi, you are that only. Quantum physicist also says that it is that singularity that reflects across the world in different pluralities. I would like to have a quick reflection from you from the point of view of Jain wisdom and philosophy, how the concept of oneness is elaborated in Jainism. I will be requesting you in brief if you can help us to understand, so that in next questions we can go deeper in that, but a brief understanding of the concept of oneness in Jainism.
थैंक यू विक्रांत जी। जैनिज्म में वननेस के लिए भगवान महावीर की मूल वाणी जो प्राकृत भाषा में है, वो कहते हैं आय तुले पयासु, आत्मा सबकी समान है। ऐसे के अंदर हम अपने आत्मतुल्य सभी को समझें। ये वननेस का एक मूल सूत्र है जो हमें वसुदेव कुटुंबकम की ओर ले जाता है, जो हमें ये बताता है कि अपने अस्तित्व की तरह दूसरों के अस्तित्व को स्वीकार करना, अपने विचारों की तरह दूसरों के विचारों को आदर करना, यही वननेस का मूल मंत्र है। आय तुले पयासु, सभी आत्माएं समान हैं, इसलिए भेद का कोई कारण नहीं बनता।
Thank you very much, Acharya Lokesh Muniji. Acharya Muniji, we have audience from different parts of the world. So, if possible, and if you are comfortable, if it can be spoken more in English, then maybe more people will be able to understand it in more deeper, if it is possible. So, thank you very much, Acharya Lokesh Muniji said this, that Jainism says that behind every body, it's the same Atma that reflects in everybody. And he said, once the Atma is same, then certainly we all are connected in one family. Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, whole world is one family. Thank you very much for that beginning message from Jainism. Now I'll come to Dr. Moss, who represents Indigenous Native American Association of Nations. It's an amazing association, and it comes to a legacy of natives' culture and wisdom. I'll request Dr. Moss to give us a quick reflection of what native traditions and wisdom talk about the concept of oneness.
Greetings to everyone. Namaste. In our language, we say Amastu as well, which means we bow to divinity within you. That's the point of reference, is acknowledging the breath of life that's within all. We acknowledge one of our chants is Tamu Neferset Hu, and Ta represents earth, Mu represents the water, Nefu is wind, Set is fire, Hu is force of creative will. So we've always acknowledged nature, and we gave homage to nature and praise to nature for providing. Without the sun, the SUN, there would be no life. We all acknowledge that as we grow our food. Without water, we wouldn't live, without, so we acknowledge that we come from the earth, that our bodies are made from the dust of the ground, of the mud of the soil, that the spirit or the force of creative will is our intellect, and that, the fire that's in our solar plex, that fire, that lit sun that's a part of the outer sun is inner, as above, so below, that's within us. So we always directed our attention inwardly, acknowledging Mother Earth, acknowledging the awe of nature, and knowing that we all need nature to survive. Without acknowledging and giving reverence to nature, all the other religions came from that foundation. And then it's not told in so many different ways, but ultimately that's it. Ultimately, it's acknowledging the elements of nature and knowing that we all are a part of that. That's one.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Moss, as he added that native traditions value 5 elements a lot. They say that we have come out of earth, and he mentioned a particular term called Ta Mu Se Hu. It talks about water, earth, fire, and the creative will through which whole creation has taken place. So he said that the concept of oneness in natives is actually that we all have come from the same earth, and we need to acknowledge that. Thank you very much, Dr. Moss, in adding this. I'll come back to Acharya Lokesh Muniji with the question that once Jainism and even natives religions, they talk about that we have the same background, we come from the same source. Then Acharyaji, why we see so much divides in the world? When we come from the same source, why there is divide?
विक्रांत जी, मैं चाहूंगा कि मेरे वक्त को आप संक्षेप में इंग्लिश में।
परफेक्ट मोदी जी, नो वरीज।
देखिए, हमें जो ये एकता के अंदर विभेद की बात है, उसका रूट कॉज जो है हमारे मस्तिष्क में मौजूद है। हमारे मस्तिष्क में एनिमल ब्रेन भी मौजूद है, जहां पर 5 सुकृतियां जन्म लेती है। तो हमारे इसी मस्तिष्क में नियोकॉर्टेक्स परत भी है, जहां पर मानवीय और दैविक वृत्तियां जन्म लेती है। जब जब हमारा एनिमल ब्रेन जागृत होता है, तब हम अभेद से भेद की दुनिया में कभी क्षेत्रवाद के नाम पर, कभी धर्म, कभी रंग, कभी नस्ल, कभी संप्रदाय, उस भेद की दुनिया में हम प्रवेश करते हैं। किंतु जब हमारा नियो कॉर्टेक्स परत जागता है, जिसको दैविक वृत्तियों के उद्गम का स्थान कहें, मैं मॉडर्न मेडिकल साइंस की अगर भाषा में कहूं, हमारे मस्तिष्क के दो भाग हैं, एक सिंपैथेटिक नर्वस सिस्टम और दूसरा पैरासिम्पैथेटिक नर्वस सिस्टम। यूनेस्को का संविधान भी ये स्वीकार करता है कि युद्ध मैदान में बाद में लड़ा जाता है, पहले मस्तिष्क में पैदा होता है। तो इसका बीज जो है वो मानव मस्तिष्क में मौजूद है। अपेक्षा ये है कि हमारा एजुकेशन सिस्टम जो है, जो बौद्धिक और शारीरिक शिक्षा पे बल देता है, किंतु साथ साथ मेंटल डेवलपमेंट एंड इमोशनल डेवलपमेंट, मानसिक विकास और भावात्मक विकास पर अगर ध्यान दे, मैं समझता हूं रूट कॉज जो है, कैसे एनिमल ब्रेन को तिरोहित किया जाए, नियोकॉर्टेक्स पद्धति को जगाया जाए, तो हिंसा, आतंकवाद आदि समस्याओं का जड़ मूल से समाधान हो सकता है। और उसके लिए अपेक्षा है मस्तिष्कीय प्रशिक्षण की। पीस एजुकेशन जैसे कार्यक्रमों को प्राइमरी एजुकेशन से इंट्रोड्यूस करने की उन्हें जरूरत है।
Thank you very much. Acharya Lokesh Muniji mentioned that why do we see divides? He said that we see divides because we don't utilize our intellect well. He said there are two parts in our brain, or two ways the brain can be seen. One is the animal brain. Probably he is referring to amygdala. And second, he said the human brain, he is referring to prefrontal cortex, that he said is a neo brain. And he said when we are driven by animal brain, then we see divides. But the moment we are driven by human brains, then we see divine. So he said that the gap between divine and divide is actually the gap between ancient brain and a neo brain, amygdala and prefrontal cortex, which he also mentioned about sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system that keeps us balanced. And he said that any war before fighting on the battlefield is always fought in the mind of human beings. So the need of the hour is to educate people to be driven by neo brain, by providing them more mental and emotional development rather than only materialistic development that leads to human brain at times. Thank you very much, animal brains at times. Thank you very much, Acharya. Now the same question to Dr. Moss. Dr. Moss, we all have come from all those 5 elements. I also have water element, you also have, we all have the same elements in us. Then why so much divide?
Yes, we've gotten away from that awareness, and so as time went on, people started to create their own stories based on their particular understanding, and so it got away from like the sun, who without the sun, S-U-N, to the sun, S-O-N. It became it left the elements of nature and became the human being. And then we started trying to create the source in our own image so that we can understand it. And so because we had lost awareness of our true nature, which is pure consciousness. So what we point to mostly is not so much as to understand it intellectually, but to discover it through direct experience. Just shifting your attention to the pure conscious self that's noticing the play, or the animal nature, or the lower nature, your body, your emotions, and your spirit, and all of these individual things that we claim to be our own. But there's something that's noticing that, and we try to point to that level of awareness so that people can actually experience it for themselves, and then they can fall back in love with nature. And to fall back in love with nature is to embrace all.
Thank you very much. Dr. Moss interestingly said that, yes, we all come from the 5 elements, but later ages, people started making stories of their own limited understanding. And he said that from the nature, what he mentioned as sun, which enlightens whole world, to son, son, your own son. So the focus became very narrow. And our focus, instead of seeing the Almighty, we started seeing might in our own family and our siblings. And he also said that it's true that, as Bible also said, that God created man in his own image. He said then human beings, man started creating God in his own image. And from there the problem started. He said that because we with our limited understanding is trying to define what is unlimited. And that is a problem. And we are governed by what he said as a lower nature. What Acharya ji said as an animal nature, he mentioned the same thing as lower nature. And he said, as a solution, we need direct experience. Reorientation ourselves and direct experience and fall in love with nature. Our true nature, as Gita says, Swabhava, your actual nature. So I'll come to Acharya ji again. Acharya ji, we discussed so far, we understood that we come from the same source, but due to our lower brain, lower understanding, we enter into divides, the fields of divides. Along with that, the moment we see divisions, compassion gets missed. We don't feel compassionate towards others because we see so much divides. He belongs to different country, different nation, different caste, different creed, different religion. What Jainism talks about compassion?
Compassion, karuna,
Yes.
दया, महात्मा गांधी से एक बार पूछा गया कि सबसे बड़ी समस्या क्या है। उन्होंने कहा कि सबसे बड़ी मौजूदा समय की समस्या है करुणा का स्रोत सूखता जा रहा है। और करुणा के स्रोत सूखने के रूट कॉज में जब हम जाएंगे, मनुष्य के भीतर जो लोभ की चेतना है, जो लालच की चेतना है, जब जब वो हावी होती है, तब तब व्यक्ति कंपेशन को बुलाता है। वनों की अंधाधुंध कटाई करेगा, खनिज पदार्थों का अंधाधुंध दोहन करेगा, नशीले पदार्थों का भी व्यवसाय कर डालेगा, क्योंकि अधिक से अधिक संपत्ति अर्जित करनी है। और वहां पर करुणा का स्रोत सूख जाता है। उसके लिए जब तक धर्म को अध्यात्म से नहीं जोड़ा जाएगा, मौजूदा समय में भीड़ बढ़ रही है मंदिर, मस्जिद, चर्च, गुरुद्वारे में, किंतु अपेक्षा है धर्म को अध्यात्म से जोड़ा जाए। और जब अध्यात्म से धर्म जुड़ता है, तब भेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति होती है, स्व और पर के बीच का भेद खत्म हो जाता है। आत्मा के स्तर पर समानता की अनुभूति होती है और वहां पर फिर क्रूरता शेष नहीं रहती है, अन्याय नहीं बचता है। उस दुनिया में केवल न्याय होता है, करुणा होती है, दया होती है, कंपेशन होता है और दूसरे की भलाई निहित होती है।
थैंक यू।
इसलिए मैं इस बात पर बल देना चाहूंगा, आज हम सभी धर्म के गुरुओं का दायित्व है कि हम धर्म को अध्यात्म से जोड़ें। और अगर अध्यात्म से जोड़ते हैं, उस दिशा में हम अपने अनुयायियों को ले जाते हैं, तो निश्चित रूप से हेल्दी सोसाइटी का निर्माण होगा, स्वस्थ समाज की संरचना होगी और हमारी दुनिया और अधिक बेहतर बन सकेगी।
Thank you. Thank you. Acharya Lokesh ji said that I asked him the question that why compassion is going low. And he said that Mahatma Gandhi, father of Indian nation, mentioned that dried up compassion is the biggest problem of our times and our generations. Indeed. And he said, why compassion is getting dried? He said, it is the greed that is drying up the compassion. Because you can fulfill anybody's need, but not greed. He said, we are cutting trees enormously, exploiting nature, getting intoxicated with our own greed. And he said, as a solution, I love this thing about you, Acharya Lokesh ji, that with every problem, you are also mentioning the solution. Thank you very much. So, and he said, to solve that greed as a problem and to restore that compassion, religion has to be connected with spiritualism. Dharma has to be connected with Adhyatma. What Dr. Moss mentioned, direct experience. You need to experience it. And that is spiritualism. Adhyan, Atma. I need to experience. And then he said, once you experience it yourself by your own spiritual practices, then the gap between me and you will evaporate. As once was asked from Raman Maharshi, that's Maharshi, how should I behave with others? Raman Maharshi replied, there are no others. It is only you who reflect everywhere. So thank you, Acharya Lokeshji, in mentioning that this is how we can bridge this divide and see divine. I'll come to Dr. Moss. Dr. Moss, we know that we are one and we sprout from the same source, but still we have what you call as trail of tears on the face of humanity. When natives were 60,000 natives were migrated forcefully from one place to another, and 20,000 natives died in transit. Then we have slave trade started 1525 to 1866. 13 million people were enslaved because of variety of reasons, and out of them 2 million people died just in the transit across the Atlantic. From where all this is coming? Why we don't have compassion for others? And still we listen news like I can't breathe. Why people are unable to breathe when we come from the same sources? Over to you.
Yes, well, we one of the scriptures says in the Bible, it says when Cain kills Abel and they replace Abel with a son called Seth, and the word Seth means replacement. One of the reasons we don't understand the languages where these things are coming from. Then Seth had a son named Enos, and Enos means forgetful human being. We simply forgot our nature, like we all saying right here. We forgot our true nature. So by not knowing who we are, not acknowledging the sameness in all, we lose compassion because we believe ourselves to be this individual. And as long as you think you're an individual, then there's competition, there's jealousy, there's I must be better or worse, and it's always it's an opposite. And even universal laws dictates that it's not opposites, it's polarity, like gender. On one scale of gender, you have masculine. On the other scale, you have on the other opposite, or let's not use opposite, but on the other end of that of gender, you have feminine. So we're all the same. We're all it's still human beings. So just not being aware of the sameness within all, we lose compassion and understanding for the mental illness that people are experiencing through believing themselves to be something different. So when somebody does someone wrong, or there's no forgiveness because there's no understanding that this is a mental defect. This is a mental defect or a lack of awareness of the sameness within all. So you take things personally. As long as you believe yourself to be an individual, we take things personally, and it's a constant competition to do better than the other. Like Achari said, I believe I pronounced his name correctly. It's greed. He's absolutely right. We're greedy for more and more, and it's a race. Like the sperm cells, that one sperm out of a million sperms is trying to reach the egg. And so we're still in that animal state of trying to outdo everybody else. And so once we get back and fall back in love with nature, then the compassion will restore itself automatically. You won't even have to try, because you will bow, like we say, Namaste or Hamasta. We bow to the divinity. We acknowledge the divinity within you, and by acknowledging that, you automatically have compassion for your fellow human beings.
Wow. So Dr. Moss said that The reason is we forgot our true nature and we consider ourselves as individual. And the moment you consider yourself individual, then jealousy, competition, these things comes.
Yes,
And when these things comes, it lead to a mental illness. He said that probably just like we were born, all sperm particles were rushing in a race to reach to the egg first. Similarly, probably still we are in an animal kind of race to nowhere, and that race leads to nowhere. He said that instead of seeing others as opposites, it's just like polarity. Male female is just a fact, nothing more than that. It is a polarity to make a diversified, beautiful world rather than a divided, ugly world. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Moss. I'll come back to Acharya Lokesh ji. Acharya ji, this compassion is which is we are losing due to greed and our lower nature. Is it only for human beings, or does Zennism talk about that the same compassion should be there for animals, other species than human beings, and going one more stage ahead, for all living and non-living beings also, even if the beings are non-living? So for whom this compassion? My question again, I'll say, is it only for human, or for non-human, or for also non-living? Over to you.
बहुत सुंदर विक्रांत जी, बहुत ही सटीक इसका समाधान लॉर्ड महावीर के जैन प्रिंसिपल्स में मिलता है। उन्होंने सट जीव निकाय का एक सिद्धांत दिया। पृथ्वी, पानी, अग्नि, वायु, वनस्पति और त्रस, और केवल लिविंग बीइंग ही नहीं, उन्होंने जीव और अजीव, केवल जीवाधिकार की बात नहीं की, अजीवाधिकार की भी बात कही। और उन्होंने ये कहा कि इनका अनावश्यक उपयोग मत करो। और मैं समझता हूं इकोलॉजी के संदर्भ में भी, पर्यावरण के संदर्भ में एक मौलिक सिद्धांत है ये। और अगर हमें प्रमोशन एंड प्रोटेक्शन एनवायरनमेंट का करना है, मैं कहना चाहूंगा वी हैव टू पे अटेंशन टू आवर लाइफ स्टाइल। लॉर्ड महावीर ऑफ जैनिज्म सेड दैट अर्थ, वाटर, फायर, एयर, vegetable are all creations. Do not use them more than necessity. That statement was that limited substance can fulfill the needs but cannot fulfill desires. तो इसके लिए बहुत ही सुंदर समाधान यह है, केवल जीवाधिकारी नहीं, अजीवाधिकार के साथ भी हमें कंपेशन का अगर भाव होगा तो हम पर्यावरण को नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाएंगे। पदार्थ सीमित है, इच्छाएं असीम है। सीमित पदार्थ असीम इच्छाओं की पूर्ति नहीं कर सकते। अभी डॉक्टर मॉस ने जैसा कहा कि जब तक हमारे भीतर अनुभूति नहीं होगी तब तक उस समस्या का समाधान नहीं है। और इसलिए हम सबको ये समझने की जरूरत है कि इच्छाएं तो आकाश के समान अनंत हैं, सीमित पदार्थ असीम इच्छाओं की पूर्ति नहीं कर सकते, इसलिए लिमिटेशन जरूरी है। और केवल लिविंग बीइंग के लिए ही नहीं, अजीवाधिकार के लिए भी, चाहे जीव हैं चाहे अजीब हैं, उन सब के प्रति आदर का, रेस्पेक्ट का भाव होगा, तभी सही मायने में कंपेशन चरितार्थ होगा।
Thank you very much. Acharya Lokesh Muniji mentioned that Lord Mahavira gave a concept of Satjiv Nikaya. He said that earth, water, fire, air, even this whole Vanaspati, this whole nature, he mentioned that Lord Mahavira give special attention to Jeev and Ajeev both. Jeev is living beings with Chetan, with consciousness, and Ajiv is which does not know its own consciousness. Ajiv is Jada. So he mentioned that even Jeev and Ajiv, and he said that it's not only living beings have rights. He gave a great concept. He said that Lord Mahavira said, even non-living beings also have their own rights. And their rights are to be protected. Even if they cannot say, at least we should be conscious enough, we should be sensitive enough to understand that every matter on this world has its own rights, and it has to be nourished and used rather than only exploited. He said, never exploit it beyond a limit. And he said, use it wisely. He said, matter is limited, but desires are unlimited like sky. So we need to train ourselves to limit ourselves through self-control. And that way we will be doing justice with other elements of this nature. It reminds me of Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna says in Gita, when Arjuna asks that I know what is right and I know what is wrong, but still what pushes me towards wrong? In spite of knowing what is right, why don't I comfortably do what is right? Lord Krishna replies, Esha Kamaha, that is desires. He said your desires actually pushes you in that direction. So I want to know your reflection on that, Dr. Moss, that compassion to whom? What native religion says? Because you represent a great tradition that has been coming since the inception of human beings on the planet. You also represent Africans, you represent Americans, you represent natives, you represent all the indigenous religions. What do they talk about? Compassion for whom? Is it for human beings only? Is it for non-humans? Is it for even non-living?
Well, we're clear on the fact that we're all connected. It's a quantum experience. We know that, you know, even through our chanting of Tamu Nefeset Hu, earth, air, fire, water, everything in existence is a part of. We would demonstrate by even wearing the headgear in some of our ceremonies of different animals to represent different parts of our different attributes or different nature of our human expression. So in astronomy, astrology, it all shows that we are one with the animal, with all living beings. We make no distinction as far as conscious. Even if something as simple as if you turn on the light, or if you study animals or insects, it's clear that they're aware. Everybody doesn't have the exact same mind. Like gnat doesn't have the mind of a human, or a dog doesn't have the mind of a human. But it's clear that they are aware. They're conscious, and so then they respond according to their nature. But we definitely acknowledge that we're all a part of each other as far as one consciousness, and then the mind of each individual comes in based on their experience, based on their education, and it dictates how they express themselves. But as both of you have said, our desires is the road to suffering. So if we get a hold of our desires or get control of our lower nature and reduce those desires, then we would stumble into the pure conscious self. We would discover it.
Thank you. Dr. Moss said that animals and nature has been an integral part of natives, and natives has brought themselves from that only. As you can see, the background of Dr. Moss also has representations of different parts of nature, living and non-living both. He said that in all our ceremonies, we dress some animal symbols just to represent that we have those instincts and we have those representations also as a part of us. He also mentioned that even animals or everything is aware in this universe. Everything is conscious. Dr. Moss, when you said that everything in this universe is conscious, it reminds me of a quantum physicist who had come to our discussion, and he also mentioned that even an electron is conscious.
That's right.
Every small, tiny particle in this universe is conscious, and we all are conscious. And Dr. Moss said that I agree that desires are the road to suffering.
That's right.
So now the question comes here is, should we suppress our desires? Because it is the general tendency of mind to desire. So what should we do with this? If there is mind, there will be desires. And there are so many things I see in internet and TV and everything. I see so many things. When I see something, desires pops up. So what should I do with that? How do I manage, regulate, kill whatever my desires? Is it that easy? How can I do it? How do I control my desires? Over to you, Acharya Lokesh Mani ji.
अभी आपने अर्जुन और योगीराज श्री कृष्ण के संवाद की बात कही थी विक्रांत जी। उन्होंने कहा जानामि धर्मम नच में प्रवृत्ति, जानामि अधर्मम नच में निवृत्ति। मैं धर्म को जानता हूं किंतु उसमें प्रवृत्त नहीं हो पा रहा, एक्टिव नहीं हो पा रहा हूं। अधर्म को जानता हूं किंतु उससे निवृत्त नहीं हो पा रहा हूं, छोड़ नहीं पा रहा हूं। कहा गया कि उसका कारण है भीतर में बैठा हुआ मोह, अटैचमेंट का भाव, मोह का भाव। डिजायर्स के बारे में भी मैं ये कहना चाहूंगा, लेकिन डिजायर्स किस लिए चाहता है आदमी? सुख के लिए, शांति के लिए। किंतु अल्टीमेट ट्रुथ ये है कि सुख और शांति का संबंध पदार्थ और परिस्थिति से नहीं, हमारी मनस्थिति से है। अभी आपने कहा कि इतनी सारी थिंग्स हैं, आपके पास टीवी सेट हो सकता है, सोफा सेट हो सकता है, डिनर सेट हो सकता है, किंतु अगर माइंड अपसेट है तो सारे सेट बेकार हो जाते हैं। तो सवाल इस बात का है कि डिजायर्स भी जिस चीज के लिए है, जिसके लिए, वो है सुख और शांति के लिए। और सुख और शांति केवल पदार्थ और परिस्थिति में नहीं, वो हमारी मनस्थिति में है। तो पीस ऑफ माइंड की दिशा में अगर हम आगे बढ़े तो डिजायर अपने आप में कम होती है और हेल्दी सोसाइटी का निर्माण होता है।
Thank you. So we acknowledge your presence, Dr. Friedman. Thank you very much for joining us. So, Namaste. So Acharya Lokesh Mani ji mentioned that why do we fall prey to the greed? It is the attachment and the feeling that from my desires fulfillment, I will get peace and happiness. And he said the whole world has been evident of this source, this fact that in spite of increasing per capita income, per individual net happiness is not increasing on the planet. There were many researches that taken place in the United States of America that since last 100 years, per capita income of US has increased, but net individual happiness has not increased. Then Acharya Lokesh Mani ji said that it's not the matter that provides the happiness, it's the mind over the matter that provides happiness. Thank you, Acharya Lokesh ji. So I will come to Dr. Friedman. She comes from Cambridge University and she is an expert of anthropology. So she will add a scientific dimension to our discussion. My simple question to you is, we see lots of divide in this world, on this planet, caste, creed, race, religion, and everything. I don't know. Are we evolved like this only to see divides? What anthropology says is are there many DNAs that we have different DNAs and that's why we behave differently? Or why we see so much divide? What is the evolution of human concept?
Well, you could see that from also our cousins, our primate cousins, are also divided in the same way. They have bands, they fight with each other. it's part of the condition, and I think the acceptance of these divides is part of life, and it doesn't mean that we are not destined to be fully fulfilled and happy. It doesn't have this implication. I think it's a matter of living with the contradictions and transcending these contradictions in our lives. But yes, there has always been war at different scales, and wars between just a few bands of people, or wars between empires in the past. And it's part of our challenge is to not take evil seriously, to not take violence seriously, to find a resolution within this conflict. That's what I would say as an anthropologist.
Okay. So she said that the science says that anthropology says
anthropology is not a science.
social science.
Archaeology can show some facts, but anthropology makes hypotheses and theories that, like science, can be disproved as we make new discoveries.
So Dr. Friedman said that the social science of anthropology says this: yes, there are divides. Even two cousins, they fight. So let's accept it as a fact. I read a scripture that says that the first human born, after Adam and Eve, the first human born killed the second human born. So that way, the first human born became a perpetrator, and the second human born was a victim. So probably she was trying to say that the divide is there. First, accept the divide, because you need to accept it first, that yes, it is, and then gradually transcend it. For that, acceptance is important. So now I'll come to Dr. Moss with that remark. Dr. Moss, how to transcend this divide, and do you see this in this world order? Are we working towards it? Is world going towards seeing divine beyond divide, or this world is moving towards getting more fragmented?
Oh, it's definitely becoming more. We're becoming more aware of the sameness in all. I mean, we're in a day and time where these types of discussions are happening all over the world. People are becoming more spiritually aware. We're falling away from man-made religions and dogmas and doctrines, and we're attuning ourselves with the entire universe. So it's each one of us that awaken to our pure self affects the super consciousness of the entire spectrum. So as long as we're continuing in this direction, we're going to win. It's inevitable for consciousness to awaken to the purity of itself. It was described to me or to us at one time. It was like in a meditative state when consciousness meditated in created form. It kind of got so involved in its meditation and became that it kind of lost itself. But now the involution or the evolution or the involution is awakening to its pure self, and is in the beauty and love and compassion. All of that is being restored. It's just a day and time. Yes.
Thank you. Yes. So Dr. Mo said that world is moving towards becoming more balanced than ever before. And it's a good news. He said that it is good to walk fast, but it is better to decide that the direction is right.
Yes.
So world is moving in the right direction. And he said that the more and more individual will go for purity, meditation, the extremes of meditation, when you lose yourself even in your own being. He mentioned the concept of evolution. Once you evolve, there is a concept of involution also, that the same consciousness is involved in everybody. So it's the cycle of involution and evolution that keeps on happening. And we are on the cycle of evolution. because that seed of pure consciousness is involved in everybody of us. I'll come to you again, Dr. Friedman, because you joined us late. So we want to get be benefited with you. My question is, what is the anthropological
Well,
perspective
I,
of
I think I think we have embraced a linear kind of idea of evolution, but perhaps we need to return to cyclical view of evolution. And in the Indian tradition, there is that knowledge of very long cycles, and of course the dugas, and we are maybe at the end of a cycle with Kali Duga. That's possible, but we need to keep in mind the possibility of a cyclic way, which is in nature. Nature is fractal and it's full of cycles. And I think our human history, and including anthropology, is very short-lived. It's very limited in the history of the world. And yes, the seeds for the new era are probably already here among us. And this is why I work with women and babies, because it's the way babies are being brought into the world that can make a more rapid difference.
Thank you. So, Dr. Friedman mentioned that the view of evolution cannot be linear. It has to be seen in the form of cycles, because whole nature follows a cycle. And she said that, like in Hinduism, in Sanatan Dharma, they mentioned about Vedantic philosophy of yugas and kalpas. And maybe we are at the end of one yuga, they call it Kali Yuga, and a new dawn is about to be there. And then the new things will start and everything happens. She said that whole human society, human existence, leaving alone anthropology, we have very small proportion in these big cycles. So these cycles are too big, and they keeps on continuing moving like it happens in nature. And to broader understanding, he works with prenatal, so that from the infanthood, if kids will understand the bigger picture, then they will remove that keyhole vision of the world. It's a big cycle rather than only a small perspective. Acharya Muniji, Lokesh Muniji, Jainism also, I heard, talks a lot about the cycles of life. What are those cycles of life and our existence? And how does it create the feeling of oneness and compassion?
विक्रांत जी, ट्रुथ हमेशा एक होता है, सत्य एक होता है। चाहे जैन फिलोसफी हो, बाइबल हो, कुरान हो, सबके अंदर जो भी महापुरुष जिन्होंने सत्य का अनुसंधान किया, सत्य की खोज की, उनको आंसर एक ही मिला। शब्दों का अंतर हो सकता है, आप कलयुग सतयुग कह दें। जैन फिलोसफी में इसी को 6 कालखंड में बांटा गया, अवसर्पणी काल और सर्पणी काल के कालखंड को, कि किस तरह से अच्छे मूल्यों का ह्रास होते होते चरम पर पहुंचता है, और फिर वहां से बुराई का ह्रास होते होते अच्छाई का जन्म होता है। मैं सरल भाषा में कहूंगा कि हमारे अस्तित्व में अच्छाई और बुराई के साथ निरंतर संघर्ष लगा रहता है। जब जब हम अवेयर होकर के अच्छाई को आत्मसात करेंगे, बुराई दूर होती जाएगी, बुराई हमारे पे हावी नहीं हो पाएगी। कालखंड का अपना महत्व है, किंतु अपनी अवेयरनेस, और जैसा डॉक्टर मॉस ने कहा कि जब हम मेडिटेशन से अनुभूति के स्तर पर जाते हैं और जब साक्षात्कार करते हैं, जिसे भेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति कहूंगा, स्व और पर के बीच का भेद मिटता है, तब कलयुग के अंदर भी सत्ययुग आ जाता है, और जब भेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति नहीं होती है तो सतयुग के अंदर भी भीतर से कलयुग जाग उठता है। इसलिए हमें कालखंड के साथ साथ स्वयं की अवेकनिंग के लिए, जैसा स्वामी विवेकानंद ने कहा, हमारी सिस्टर ने अभी कहा, जैसे ओशो ने कहा, मैं फिर से कहूंगा कि ये दो दुनियाएं हैं हमारी, एक कालखंड की और एक अनुभूति की। दोनों के बीच में संतुलन करके चलेंगे तभी हमारी दुनिया ज्यादा बेहतर बनेगी।
Thank you. So, Acharya Lokesh Maniji added a beautiful dimension to the discussion, Dr. Friedman. She said, yes, there is a cycle of time, which you call yugas. But even Kali Yuga, there are some people with the state of mind of Satyuga. And even in Satyuga, the best of the times, there are some people with a wicked state of mind. So he said, yes, along with that bigger cycles, there is a cycle of mind also. Every individual has its own cycles. When there is a decay in virtue, rise of evil, and then certainly there is, through meditation and self-realization, that evil subsides and the virtue rises. So he said that there are two cycles. One is the cycle which is the cycle of our civilization, our times, and another is cycle of our own life and individual cycle. So he mentioned that we can create our own weather, and creating our own weather, we can assure our upliftment. Now, may I request to the administrator to have in our discussion Andrew Relji also, and Swami Suryanandaji also. So we discussed so far about how all religions talk about oneness. We talk about compassion and we talk about eco-friendliness, but still anthropology says that division is a fact. Understand, embrace it, and then transcend it. Go beyond it. And how to go beyond it? Then there are many meditative practices of self-realization. Once you realize the self, then you can go beyond this seeming divides, which makes people behave abruptly or behave strangely. I'll come to involve Andre Ji also in the discussion. Andre Ji is a world-renowned master on meditation. Andre Ji, time and again, our experts has been mentioning the importance of meditation in realizing self. Real eyes, how through your own eyes you can realize self. So you have been guiding people across the globe. Can you help us to understand how meditation helps in self-realization?
I think there is no how. And when we're talking about all this, we're still using our thought, and thought is operating only into duality. And we have the tendency to oppose oneness or with multiplicity. And what you call divides and divine. And I think it's a wrong way to go to this question. Because you also have this concept in India, I would say beda, dual and non-dual together and not opposite. And we have this tendency, it is not a tendency, that's the way the thought is working, is that thought is always making differences, judging, hierarchy, divisions, trying to give something a better place than another, a better concept than another. And the question is there a possibility of perception without the thought. And in that case, what you call meditation, or I call it meditative state, as meditation is not an exercise, and most of the time today when people are using the word meditation, they mean concentration. It's a state, and it's a state where the psychological mind is quiet, and it might come to a state where the logical mind is quiet also. In this state, there is no possibility of understanding except in the deep meaning of understanding, which means to stand under. That is not acquiring any kind of knowledge, except if we take it as staying at the edge of the known. And what we're trying to talk about cannot be expressed through words. And I know we are into a meeting and we have to talk to each other, but there's no way for explaining what meditative state is. As any explanation would bring to division.
Okay.
So we are kind of stuck with this.
Thank you.
I like to add one thing. It is about this, the Kali Yuga, I mean, different ideas of the yugas. There is a text where we find this. It is called the Surya Siddhanta. It is the text that talks about the different yugas. And regarding Kali Yuga, this text says that it will begin in 3102, in the year 3102. That is, if we believe into it, we are not in it yet. And the text said it will last 420,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So we still have 1,000 years.
Lot of time to improve. Thank you.
If we give value to this Surya Siddhanta.
Thank you. So Andrewji said that the question was how meditation can help in self-realization. He said thought brings duality. To be and not to be is the problem. Since have Hamlet till today. And mind always thinks in dialectics. He says that meditation helps you to go beyond your mind and beyond your thoughts. So your logical and psychological impressions, they get seized, and then you stand under the reality and you understand it. And he also mentioned that things cannot be expressed, it has to be realized. Seen yourself, as Tao Te Ching of China, Lao Tse used to say that truth cannot be expressed in words. Whatever you speak has limitations of the language. Thank you very much, Andrewji. And he said that meditation has to be experienced. I need a quick reflection from Swami Suryananda ji also about it. Swami Suryananda is the president of European Yoga Federation. You are training across the globe people on meditation. Same question to you also, Swamiji. How meditation can help in realizing your oneself? You may need to unmute, Swamiji. Unmute. Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. I can understand why there is this.
No worries, Swamiji.
Sorry. Oh,
Yes.
only.
Swamiji, seems there is some sound issue at your end. Can you speak again?
Yes.
No. Okay. It is echoing. So till you fix it, because your sound is coming like Akashvani. a sound of the cosmos. So whatever you are saying seems cosmos is also reflecting on the same. So till you fix it, let me go to Acharya Lokesh again. Till you fix your sound. Aditi, offline, can you help Swamiji to fix the sound? So Acharya Lokesh ji, my question from you is, what are the practices of meditation in Jain religion that can help in self-realization? You may mention about meditation or some of the practices that our audience from different parts of the world are listening to you, some practical practices which you will suggest, which will help person for self-realization, at least walking towards that. You may need to unmute, Acharya ji.
थैंक यू विक्रांत जी. एक्चुअल में मेडिटेशन आत्म साक्षात्कार का ही जरिया है. ये आकाशवाणी.
हाँ, that's fine. Yes, carry on. Yes.
मेडिटेशन केवल एक अलग विधा नहीं है एकाग्र होने का. मूल मेडिटेशन है सत्य से साक्षात्कार करने का, अपने आप से साक्षात्कार करने का, और उसके लिए रिलैक्सेशन के प्रयोग के साथ जब हम अपनी पूरी बॉडी एंड माइंड को रिलैक्स करके और फिर उस अनुभूति के लिए उस दुनिया में प्रवेश करते हैं, तब भेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति. मैंने भी इस शब्द का प्रयोग किया.
Cannot hear you.
You are audible, Swamiji. Yes. Yes, Acharya ji. Yes, you were talking about
भेद विज्ञान की अनुभूति होती है, तब वास्तव में सत्य का साक्षात्कार होता है. वहां स्व और पर के बीच का भेद मिट जाता है. मैं और दूसरा के बीच की कोई सीमा नहीं रहती है. वो है आत्मिक स्तर, और वो केवल मेडिटेशन से हासिल किया जा सकता है. इसलिए कहा संपित्खै अपगम अपयनम, आत्मा के द्वारा आत्मा का साक्षात्कार, और स्वयं के द्वारा स्वयं को प्रश्न किम में करम, किंच में किच्च शेषम, किम सक्कणिजम न समायरामी. जब अपने आप से प्रश्न करता है और अपने आप से साक्षात्कार करता है, तब जो ज्ञान की अनुभूति होती है, जो ज्ञान प्रकट होता है, प्रकाश, वह अपने आप के अंदर सत्य का साक्षात्कार.
Thank you. So Acharya Lokesh Muniji mentioned that start with relaxation meditation. Start with relaxing your body, relaxing your mind. When these disturbances, as Andre ji also mentioned, go beyond the mind. When these fluctuations are settled, then you will understand what he mentioned about Bhed, Vigyan, the difference, the duality you will realize. And once you see the duality, you can remove it and go beyond. And he said the method is lift yourself by yourself. It cannot be done by anybody else, but by you only. Thank you very much, Acharya Lokesh. I'll come to Dr. Friedman again with the same question. You mentioned accept the divide, then go transcendent to that divide. How to go do that, Dr. Friedman?
Well, I agree with
your research aspect, whatever you want to give.
I completely agree with Acharya ji about the fact that we need to start from the body. I mean, this is the yoga tradition, and the body means the nervous system, and this is why we need to inculcate this techniques of the body very early, so that even before thought is formed in childhood, the nervous system is already primed to have this experience of meditation, and maybe even moksha, maybe feeling of unity with the divine. I think children have this naturally before the age of 7, and then they need to use their reason, learn to use their reason. But if the foundation is already there for these techniques of the body, and this is what indigenous people are so good at creating with so-called natural religions, because it's not doctrine, it's practice. And I think we are moving to a religion that will be based on practice.
Wow. So Dr. Francis also mentioned, and it reminds me of what Bhagavad Gita says, that abhyas and vairagyam, practice, is very much important, she said. And she said that she added to what Acharya Lokesh Muniji said, that only you can lift yourself. Nobody from another planet or another place will come to help you in that. It's your journey, you complete it. But then Dr. Francis added, when should you start that journey? As they say that prevention is better than cure. Instead of spending whole lifetime in purifying your thoughts, can we start from the scratch? And first 7 years of kids are the best time, she said, that if they are exposed to meditative techniques, it can really contribute. And their thoughts will automatically be pure. And second is their nervous system will get enough practice, because body means nervous system. So she said, give them enough practice. Like I see some of the nations, when they prepare their Olympians, they start from very early age. So she probably similarly at the early age, when we expose kids to meditation, they will develop a nervous system which will be habitual of a meditative mindset. That's amazing that you said, Francis Ji. And I want people from all parts of the world to note this. Start as early as possible. Some people say that meditation is for the people who are either retired or retarded. No, it's not. It's for the people who have just started their life. So let's begin fresh. I'll come to Swamiji if your mic is working now and issue is resolved. And my question is some practical meditative tips for self-realization, your reflection in that. What towards that?
Can you hear me now? Perfect.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. No, Dr. Vikramji, I want to do some question to these eminent speakers. For example, I need some answer. For example, in oneness, you know that judgment sometimes can be considered a critical point to reach oneness, even to sometimes can be necessary to judge in order to distinguish what is right and what it is wrong. How would be possible to handle wisely this situation?
Okay. So I'll ask this question to Dr. Moss. Dr. Moss, Swamiji has raised a question that when we want to feel oneness, it means we should not judge people. But at times, judgment is needed to decide what is right and wrong. So how do you bridge the gap that I'm judging you, still I'm loving you? I don't know. You carry on.
Everyone has pretty much said it. It's meditation, or the meditative state is going beyond thought. So judging is a thought. So once you find your pure self, the pure conscious self, you will realize that the voice in the head that's pretending to be you is not really you. So you won't have to accept the judgment. You don't have to accept what is being said in your head. You don't have to accept what you're hearing. One of the practices I share is to always question the I who's speaking. When you hear the word I, question, see if you can discover who is actually speaking. See who's speaking and see who's watching the speaker. And then that's how you get to notice like you said, the duality, the separation between the voice in the head pretending to be you and the one who's noticing the voice in the head pretending to be you. So the judgment, when I hear judgments, I just watch it. I don't give it any power by keeping my attention on it, and it just fades away by itself. The more you attune yourself with the pure conscious self, all those things will become less important to you, and they won't hold any power in your life, and you'll just go beyond it.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Moss said that judgment is always at the thought level, and oneness is always at the being level. So whatever is at thought level, let it do its own stuff. Yes. But at the being level, we are one. Yes. So that's amazingly the way you put it, Dr. Moss. And he also said that keep asking this question from self again and again. Who is that I to whom you are referring to? Who is speaking when you are speaking? Who is listening when you are listening? So just witness yourself. And probably he is trying to indicate, better start judging yourself. Who is the real I in you? Then you will not have at all time to judge others. Maybe. That's amazing, Dr. Moss. Thank you very much. Any other questions Swamiji would like to raise from any of the experts?
Yes, I have 2 questions more. Brief question.
Yes.
Could you kindly express your consideration about the relation between compassion and empathy?
Compassion and empathy. Now we have 2 guests who would like to pick that question. Francis ji or Muni ji? Okay, Francis ji, you carry on.
Yes.
Well, empathy means that you are, in a way, you're one in feeling with another person. But it means that you embrace their suffering. If there is dukkha, if there is suffering, you embrace their suffering. And maybe you want to do this, but you might not want to do this. While when you have compassion, you are you're taking on board, you're also embracing the suffering of the person, but you remain centered in your being. So for me, this would be the difference between empathy and compassion. That empathy is more is more involved personally than compassion. Compassion retains integrity.
Okay. So Francis ji said that in empathy, you understand another person's feelings, but at the same time, you embrace the suffering also. You embrace the dukkha. But in compassion, you witness dukkha, you love that person, you want to help, but at the same time, you yourself remain centered. You don't get personally involved in that, and you does not let it affect you and your mindset. So you remain centered. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna mentioned it as vairagyam. So I can relate with what you said. And it is also said that compassion is not something that you don't have any understanding of another person's pain. So compassion with dispassion is what is vairagyam, that you remain yourself centered and at the same time you love another person. Third question, maybe Acharya Lokesh Maniji will answer that.
एक्चुअल में इन दोनों ही शब्दों के बीच में बहुत ही सूक्ष्म भेद रेखा है. सामान्यतः एक ही लगेंगे, एम्पैथी, सहानुभूति, दूसरे के प्रति भाव, लेकिन कंपैशन में एक्टिवनेस का रोल जुड़ता है. अनुभूति के साथ साथ उसको उस कष्ट में से, पीड़ा में से, दुख में से कैसे निकालने में सहायक बनते हैं, ये एक्टिवनेस कंपैशन के साथ जुड़ जाती है.
Okay. Thank you very much. He added one more thing, that he said in compassion you act and in empathy you feel. So that may be one of more point to be added in that. Swamiji, your last question to any of the guests.
Last question, brief. how would you define the relation between dharma, the ethical way, and eco-friendliness?
Okay, wow. So I would request all of us to answer this question. So, dharma and eco-friendliness, how are they connected? So, whosoever would like to begin, they can begin. Dharma means the religion, or you may, if you permit me to say, the spirituality. So, spirituality and eco-friendliness, how they are connected. Yes, Acharya Lokesh Mani ji, please.
देखिए स्वामी सूर्यनंदा जी, बहुत बहुत आपका अभिनंदन। प्रश्न बहुत अच्छा है आपका, लेकिन वो प्रश्न तभी तक खड़ा रहेगा कि हम धर्म को केवल उपासना तक जोड़े रखते हैं, तब ये प्रश्न रहेगा। किंतु वास्तव में धर्म के 3 आयाम हैं: उपासना, नैतिकता और अध्यात्म। मौजूदा समय की कठिनाई क्या है कि केवल उपासना को ही धर्म मान लिया गया। मंदिर में गए, घंटा बजाया, प्रभु मोरे अवगुण चितन धरो, समदर्शी है नाम तुम्हारो, चाहे तो पार करो, और समझते हैं आज के सारे पाप साफ, और कल से फिर वही घोड़ा और वही मैदान। मुनि महाराज के चरण स्पर्श किए या गंगा में डुबकी लगाई। मैं फिर से कहूंगा, मैं उपासना का विरोधी नहीं हूं, किंतु मेरा यह कहना है कि धर्म का दूसरा आयाम है जीवन में नैतिक और चारित्रिक मूल्यों का समावेश। जब नैतिक मूल्य आते हैं, तब व्यक्ति वनों की अंधाधुंध कटाई नहीं करेगा, खनिज पदार्थों का अंधाधुंध दोहन नहीं करेगा, पर्यावरण को नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाएगा। किंतु तीसरा इससे महत्वपूर्ण है, वो है अध्यात्म का अवतरण। जब व्यक्ति के भीतर अध्यात्म का अवतरण होता है, तब वो इको फ्रेंडली, हम अगर कहें पर्यावरण मित्र के रूप में, क्योंकि वहां पर स्व और पर के बीच की भेद रेखा ही मिट जाती है। कबीर ने अपने पुत्र से कहा डाली तोड़ने के लिए, वो कहता है कि वैसी ही चेतना उसके भीतर प्रवाहित है, मैं उसे कैसे काटूं। ये अनुभूति कब होती है? जब अध्यात्म का अवतरण होता है। इसलिए स्वामी जी मैं बार बार जोर दिया करता हूं कि आज धर्म गुरुओं का दायित्व है वो धर्म को अध्यात्म से जोड़े, स्पिरिचुअल से जोड़े, रिलीजन को। तो वास्तव के अंदर सभी इको फ्रेंडली हो सकते हैं अगर हम धर्म को अध्यात्म से जोड़ें। जब तक धर्म को अध्यात्म से नहीं जोड़ रहे, ये प्रश्न खड़ा रहेगा कि कैसे हो, लेकिन अध्यात्म से जुड़ जाएगा, प्रश्न स्वयं समाहित हो जाएगा, क्योंकि वहां पर स्व और पर के बीच का भेद ही मिट जाएगा।
Thank you very much. Lokesh Maniji said that worship, morality, and spirituality are 3 important aspects of dharma. So not only restrain it till prayers, make it a part of your life in terms of morality and characteristic and character values, and also live it in form of a spiritual life. Then only eco-friendliness can be established, because you won't even cut a branch of a tree unnecessary. Thank you very much. Now, Andrew ji, would you like to give a quick reply of the question, how spirituality and eco-friendliness are connected?
They are the same thing. That is nature works by itself in relationship, and there is no trouble. Everything works together. We have invented this idea of eco-friendliness because we have become the enemy of nature. But what has become the enemy of nature is, again, our thought, the thinking. As a human being, we are natural beings. We are not part of nature. We are nature.
Beautiful.
But then the idea of being friend of nature is kind of it only shows there is a conflict in the mind. And it comes because we slowly, we are starting to be aware that we don't have any other planet to go, even though some dreamers are about going to the moon or Mars or wherever. But for most of us, we'll stay here. There's only one planet, and we are the planet. We are not part of it. In the nature.
Thank you.
So, and this is the Dharma.
Yes,
That is
thank you very much.
the natural law of nature, of life. So,
Thank you very much. Andreji said that there is it's not about connection. They are one. They are same. And he said that this new word called eco-friendliness, we had to coin because of our own karma. That otherwise nature is one and we are not part of nature. We are nature. Dr. Moss, spirituality and eco-friendliness, quick remark. How are they connected?
I agree with Mr. Race here. It's just one. It's once you fall in love with yourself, once you discover yourself, you automatically fall in love with nature and you do the things that benefit all of nature as opposed to trying to disturb nature.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moss. Maybe ask the same question from Dr. Fredman. What are your
Yes, I agree very much with Andre, what Andre has said. And I would go a bit further. I would say that eco-friendliness is a completely misleading concept, and it is part of our presumptuousness as human beings to think that we can be friendly with nature when we are only a little fleck in relation to natural law. We are just a little grain of sand. And it's not that we are eco-friendly. We need to be respectful. We need to be in awe of this amazing nature that we are part of. And we are a very sophisticated part of it as a human system. And yet we are also fragile and self-destructive. But I think the relationship with nature needs to be completely rethought. And we have a lot to learn from going beyond religion, which has often created more divides in that relationship with nature.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Fredman. So, dear friends, we had this panel discussion on oneness, compassion, and eco-friendliness. We had our guests from different parts of the world. And just let's have a quick recap of what we understood in this discussion on this topic. Muni Lokeshji, Acharya Lokeshji mentioned that it is one Atman, one consciousness that reflects in everybody. He said that we belong to one family. It is called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But because of the animal mind, that is our lower understanding and amygdala, somebody's mic is off on. Can admin switch off the mics? Okay. Thank you. So he also mentioned that though there is the concept of one family, but we can't see it because of our lower brain, that is amygdala. And he said we should think with the human brain, that is prefrontal cortex, that will help us to see divine beyond the divides. He said that compassion belongs to that human brain only. And as he also mentioned about Mahatma Gandhi, who says that the compassion is being dried up, and this dried compassion is the biggest problem of our times, and it has dried due to greed. And he said that dharma and adhyatma, spiritualism is the solution, so that person can again install that compassion in that self and get justice for everybody. He also said that Lord Mahavira mentioned that consciousness is there in all part of the universe. He also mentioned that Lord Mahavira said that along with Jiva, even Ajiva, non-living beings also that have their fundamental rights. And it is our duty to protect the fundamental rights of non-living beings also. Not only non-human beings, even non-living beings. He said earth, water, fire, air, along with that whole nature, and even non-living beings, but we don't see it because there are desires that are there in us. Because of our desires, we go to the lower brain, and he said that we should understand that infinite completion of the desires can never lead to peace and happiness. Across the globe we can see. And he also said that the cycle of evolution is there in everybody's mind. It is not the situations that make us. This is we who create the situations around us. So we should focus on our own evolution. And he said that there are three aspects: upasana, naitikta, and adhyat. Worship, morality, and spirituality. And religion should go towards spirituality, never cutting even a branch, because I am nature and nature is me. We are one. Thank you very much, Acharya Lokesh ji, for such an elaboration. Then we had Dr. Moss. He mentioned, he started his speech with Ta Mu Se Hu. He said, water, earth, and the creative will. We have come from earth, and this is what native says. This is what a natural religion says, that 5 elements. Acknowledge that we belong to the same 5 elements which another person belongs to. He beautifully said, but later people started making stories in their own advantage. He said, from sun sun to son sun, our thought process and our focus changed. And that's why he said, till God created human in his image, it was fine. But the moment human created God in his own image, the things started becoming bad. And he said that for that we need a direct experience, because what you see through your eyes may be misleading, and through that direct experience you will go beyond your lower nature and you will fall in love with nature. So he said that we forgot our true nature when we see opposites. Yes, there are polarities. Male and female genders exist, but they are just polarities. They are not opposites. When you see them opposite, then there is comparison, jealousy, mental illness. And he said, just like sperms in the mother, when all sperms particles rush towards the egg to infiltrate, similarly, probably all human beings on the planet are rushing in competition with each other, which is in vain. It's useless. He said that in native religions, we wear animals to show our oneness with animals. We wear their symbols to show oneness with the animals. And that he said that all animals are conscious, and desires is the road of suffering, and the direction is purity. He said, in the evolution and involution complete, it's a regular cycle that we have. And he mentioned about doing meditation, and through meditation we will understand that we and nature is one. Thank you very much, Dr. Moss, for your reflections. Then we had in our discussion Friedman ji. So she added a beautiful dimension. She said that please understand that yes, there is a divide. It has always been there. Accept it and then go transcendent to it. And she said there has been the cycles. Evolution is not linear. It's a cyclical way. There are yugas, there are kalpas, and there is a cycle. Nature goes in cycle. Everything is in a cycle, and we, anthropology as a subject, even we human beings as complete as our civilization, are very small part of these big cycles. So we should start from the babies, start from the beginning to teach them those basic values. And she also said that when you say body, we mean nervous system. Start teaching these techniques, this oneness feeling to the babies, so that it's, instead of wasting our energy in purifying the thoughts, meanwhile their nervous system will be automatically ready through practice to receive this thought of oneness. She also mentioned that compassion is considered when you are centered and helping others, whereas empathy is more getting involved in helping others. Muniji also mentioned that compassion connects with act more, and empathy is connected with feeling more. She also said that eco-friendliness is the jargon. We are nothing but a speck of sand, a grain of sand in this mighty universe, and we are just a fragile, self-destructive, but a sensitive and sophisticated part of this universe. We should understand our limitation and try to evolve accordingly from the beginning. Andreji we had with us, and Andreji said that thoughts are thing that creates the duality. Why I can't see oneness? Because thoughts, to be and not to be, mind and thoughts, they always work in dialectics. Meditation helps you to go beyond the thoughts. And that way, your logic and psychology, all the imprints, they get nullified, and you stand under, this is what he says, understanding. You stand under the reality. And as Tao Te Ching says, he also says that truth cannot be expressed. He also mentioned something about Surya Siddhant, and he said we still have 1,000 years left to improve ourselves in Kali Yuga. And he said that oneness is, it's again, he mentioned about the question of Swami Suryananda regarding the judgment. He mentioned that judgment is just a thought. Leon Mossji, Dr. Moss mentioned that judgment is a thought. And he added to Andreji's point that yes, you need to go beyond the thoughts. And oneness is at the soul level. Keep questioning yourself, who am I? That will be the key for evolution. Andreji also said that there is about connection between nature, the Swami Suryanandaji's question about connection between eco-friendliness and spirituality. Andreji said it's not about connection. It's they are one, they are same. We are naturally beings. And he said, we are not a part of nature. We are the nature. So we had some interesting questions from Swami Suryanandaji. Thank you very much. We had extreme great revelations from our masters. I would again like to thank respected Acharya Lokesh Muniji for having represented Jain religion here from India. Thank you very much, Acharya Lokesh Muniji. We would like to thank Dr. Friedman from England, representing as an expert of anthropology from University of Cambridge. We respect you, Madam. Thank you very much for your presence here. I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Moss, who represents native religions and natural religions from all parts of the world. Thank you very much, Dr. Moss, for your insightful discussions that we had here. We would like to thank Swami Suryanandaji, President, European Yoga Federation, for intriguing, insightful questions. Thank you very much for adding to the discussion with your presence. I would like to thank Mr. Andrew Rell also from France. Yogi Andrew Rell also added the discussion through his own in-depth experience of meditation. I hope, dear friends, this journey and of discussion will bring forth oneness, compassion, and eco-friendliness in all of us, and we will transcend thoughts and mind to being. Thank you very much. Namaste. Thank you. Before we go further, I have a small thought. Before we go forward, can we together have one lines of prayer for global peace? It will be the best way to send greetings to all parts of the world. In our own language, in our own traditions, one lines of prayers for global peace. It may be very small for 30 seconds for global peace. So may I begin with Dr. Moss? Any prayer from native religions for global peace and oneness?
Oh, yes. You want it in our own language?
Yes, in your own language.
Okay.
We will follow the tune. We will follow the frequencies.
Okalum. Okalum means the all. Neafi el shuk shil kalum wakul shuk kalum kalum fani. Nea fadagan shil kalum wakulum kalum fadagan shani. Nea wahid mea kalum wakulum kalum wahid mea ni. Any kilo aquino cool that kani fuzu fi kalum kamad wukamad kafuzi ilia mida fi kalum. Any ya kaba wahud kalum and ya kalum yakul kalum basically saying I am in the love of the all and all love is in me. I am a part of all and all is a part of me. I am one with all and all is one with me. I can succeed as part of all and fail as an individual. I can be all that I wish in all as long as my wish is to stay in all. I am never alone. All is, I am. All can, I can. All does, I do.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. May I request Dr. Friedman for any prayer for global peace and oneness?
Yes, I will. It's inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk, and it's I inhale, I am, I exhale, you are with me. We breathe, we are together.
It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so soulful. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Friedman. Thank you. Can I request, if Lokesh Muniji is here, can I request Acharya Lokesh Muniji for a prayer for global peace from Jainism? But before he comes, Swami Suryanandaji.
My preferred prayer in this moment, delicate moment of the humanity, is Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavantu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavantu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavantu, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I request Andreji? You may need to unmute, Andreji.
Oh, muting was the good position. Just let us stay together half a minute in silence. And all the audience, please stay in silence for a few seconds together. Thank you everyone for this little moment of silent togetherness. May we all be blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreji. Thank you, everybody. So these are the vibration of love, peace, and togetherness from United Consciousness to all parts of the world. Thank you very much. Namaste. Namaste. Thank you for being here.